Before Light Falls. A story by Stephen Creeks. Read for free at stephencreeks.com.
Chapter 1.
August 20th, 1955. I remember the weather was fine that day. The sun was beating down hard, even for Henderson. Stepping out of the barracks, the air smelled of hot dust and gasoline. Jeeps passed between the hangars, kicking up clouds of sand. Flies buzzed around the windows of the mess hall. Inside, the cook was already prepping lunch. Passing the infirmary, I heard Peterson's voice bellowing as usual.
"Damn it, Grant, you son of a bitch. I don't know what I'd give to be in your shoes. When I think you're on leave exactly on the day of the Henderson dance, who's gonna get some action while his buddies are stuck here?"
I turned around, a smile on my lips.
Guess God just likes me better, buddy.
Yeah, blessed are the simple-minded. That must be it.
Peterson, a tall black man, huge, mustached, built like a wrestler, a mountain of muscle and good humor. Except when he lost. He hated losing. I don't recall him ever honoring a single gambling debt, and it wouldn't have crossed anyone's mind to come collect it, unless they had a suicidal streak.
Your turn will come, Peterson. Don't play the victim. Not everyone is lucky enough to keep the Colonel's wife company.
Peterson was the designated driver for the Colonel's wife, Mrs. Morris. A stunning blonde, barely 30, always dressed to the nines. The kind who turned every head on the base, even if most avoided meeting her gaze for fear of drawing the Colonel's wrath. He drove her into town for her shopping, carried her bags, opened doors, and, incidentally, kept her company when the Colonel left for Washington. Sometimes for several days in a row. Everyone had their little theory about that, but no one was stupid enough to talk to him about it. Except me, apparently. He took a step closer, looking suddenly serious.
Shut your trap, Grant. You wanna get me burned or what? Seriously, if this gets to the ears of... Anyway, how do you know that?
What? You mean you and the Colonel's wife? Aside from me, your best friend? Pretty much everyone. Except the husband, of course.
Peterson lowered his head, staring at his combat boots.
Damn, I'm in deep shit. Say, you got a smoke?
Yeah, another one to put on your tab?
Hell, give me a break. Even goddamn death row inmates get a cigarette. And you know what's waiting for me if you-know-who finds out I'm screwing you-know-who.
I pulled a pack of Luckies from my pocket. We each lit one. The wind carried the smoke toward the runways.
On top of that, you're missing the Colonel's briefing. Another one. When I think the Reds are what, 7 hours by plane in that direction?
He pointed east, beyond the hangars.
Damn, I'd love to kick their asses instead of standing here listening to bullshit speeches, alert protocols, and the whole shebang. I'm telling you, buddy, sooner or later, they're the ones who are gonna strike first.
I nodded and let it slide. Didn't feel like fixing the world. Korea had taught me one thing. Those who talk about war are rarely the ones who fight it. Me, I knew what it cost. In flesh, in bone, in sleepless nights. And I had no desire to go back for seconds. Not today. Peterson crushed his cigarette.
I gotta go. Don't be late, buddy. Go find yourself a pretty doll. Do the uniform proud. And when you come back, I want the juicy details.
We parted like that. I didn't know I would never give him that report, juicy or not. I passed through the base gates. The sentry looked me up and down, dead-eyed, the kind of guy who performed his task like an automaton. He took my papers, scribbled something in the logbook, then handed them back without a word. The air outside was hotter, freer, almost strange after weeks of breathing barracks dust. I had about 6 miles to go to get to Henderson. I stuck out my thumb, without much hope. Maybe a farmer, a traveling salesman, or some poor sod would take pity on a soldier on leave. Otherwise, I had my legs, and all the time in the world. I arrived on Main Street around 11, on foot. The town of Henderson was nothing extraordinary. A few straight streets, a cinema, 2 bars, a barber shop, a newsstand, and a small white church, planted there like the first stone of Henderson, around which the town had grown, one subdivision after another. The street smelled of warm bread and gasoline. The guy at the Ford garage spent his time rubbing down the bodywork of the pickups displayed in the window, even when they were already shining, perhaps so no one would suspect him of twiddling his thumbs while waiting for customers. Women were coming back from the market, baskets on their arms, looking up every time a plane passed overhead. Here, we lived to the rhythm of the bass. Without the military, Henderson would be a dot on the map, nothing more. In front of the drugstore, 2 kids were chasing each other with plastic guns. One of them raised a hand when he saw me.
Hey, Sergeant, you coming to help us find the bomb?
I smiled and crouched down to their level.
A bomb? Here in Henderson?
Yeah, it's the Russians. They hid an atomic bomb. The whole town's gonna explode. I wonder what Superman is doing.
Superman, huh? He's a good guy. But if you ask me, he must be busy elsewhere. I lowered my voice a little, as if sharing a secret. You know what? There is no bomb. And you know why?
The 2 kids shook their heads no, very serious.
Because at the base, we have very, very sophisticated equipment. If there was a bomb, we'd know. Okay?
They nodded, convinced, then ran off again, brandishing their guns as if they were going to save the world. I stood there for a moment watching them disappear around the corner, children playing war in a country that was preparing for it for real. I walked along the barber's window, where the fan pushed out hot, sticky air. In the reflection, I caught a glimpse of my face, dark circles carved by night watches. I had showered and shaved to look presentable. Wasted effort. I still looked tired. I hadn't slept more than 3 hours, but I didn't care. It was my day. 3 days of freedom before diving back into the roar of engines and screaming sirens. The Main Street diner was open, as always, 7 days a week. Why not start my day of freedom with a huge ice cream, the house specialty? I greeted Joe at the counter and went to sit near the window, where I could watch the civilians without being seen. The jukebox was playing Earth Angel, a soft song, a little sugary, like everything else here. My gaze drifted into the distance, beyond my own reflection in the glass. I was following the people passing outside when a smell pulled me out of my daze. Not the smell of burnt coffee they usually served here. No, something sweeter, a light, floral scent with a touch of vanilla. I turned my head, and it wasn't her face I saw first, but her hand, a slender, pale hand that placed a still steaming cup in front of me.
Coffee, soldier?
I finally looked up. She was there. Pastel blue dress, white apron, hair pinned up in a hurry. The morning light slid over her face, catching her shy smile. Beautiful as the day, a simple, disarming beauty that made my heart beat a little faster.
Thanks.
That's what we're here for.
She set the coffee pot on the counter, a mischievous look in her eyes.
And if you want some real advice, try our cherry cobbler. It's the best in the state, word of honor.
I accepted immediately, without thinking. The cobbler arrived a few minutes later, golden, warm, covered in a veil of powdered sugar.
You'll have to let me know what you think, soldier.
My name is Steve.
Nice to meet you, Steve. I'm Clara. But I'm being silly. My name is on the badge, isn't it?
Our eyes met. A suspended moment. It looked like she was reading me like an open book. A look that said,
I know exactly where your eyes landed, soldier. And I don't mind.
Old Joe looked up from his milkshake machine, a smirk on his face.
Clara, when you're done flirting, there are 2 guys over there waiting for their check.
She laughed softly, without breaking eye contact.
Yes, boss.
Then, to me, as she walked away,
Don't let the cobbler get cold. That would be a crime.
she hurried toward the 2 guys waiting for their bill. To hell with them. I had barely started my cobbler when the diner door opened with the tinkling of a bell. 2 young women entered laughing, one brunette, one redhead, polka-dot dresses and heels clacking on the tiles. They headed straight for the counter. The 3 of them hugged in an embrace that smelled of complicity and face powder.
So, are you coming tonight?
I don't know.
Oh no, honey. Don't tell me you're working tonight. Mr. Joe, you aren't going to ground her on a day like today.
Joe looked up from his newspaper.
Who do you take me for? No, she has her evening off, if she wants.
Clara sketched a smile, a little embarrassed.
Then, maybe.
She had said that while looking away, an answer that meant everything and nothing. But her gaze came back to me, as if despite herself. Our eyes met, just for a second, but enough for everything around to fade away. A half smile, barely perceptible, brushed her lips.
Maybe.
The girls exchanged a knowing laugh. The redhead whispered something in Clara's ear before heading to a table in the back. Clara picked up the coffee pot again, as if nothing had happened. A little later, when I went to pay at the counter, she handed me the change, her head tilted slightly.
So, did you like it?
I stood there for a moment saying nothing, like a fool, coins in my hand. She raised an eyebrow, a smile in her eyes.
I meant the cobbler.
Yes, it was delicious, just like you said.
I left the diner, my head in the clouds. The Nevada heat was beginning to drop, slowly. I walked without a specific goal, just killing time before the evening. The storefronts of Main Street scrolled by. The hardware store, the barber, the cinema closed for renovations. Everything seemed smaller than in my memories. I hadn't been back to Henderson in a long time. The war, the assignments, and then life passing by without you noticing. My father had run a hardware store on Main Street, a magical shop to my childhood eyes. You could find everything there, screws, nails, lamps, leather gloves that smelled of grease and dust. He would go into the back room, and he always found what you were looking for, an impossible-to-find tool, a forgotten part, or just the right advice. My mother said he knew the town better than the mayor himself, and it was true. Everyone stopped by his place, sooner or later. After he died, the shop burned down. A short circuit, apparently. I never had the courage to go back. Yet I went there that afternoon, just out of curiosity, to see if there was a bank, another store, something in its place. Against all odds, the shop was still there, blackened by the fire, frozen behind boards badly nailed over the window, as if time, here, had stopped, exactly like in my memories. I stood in front of the shop for a moment, motionless. The wind made the boards rattle against the glass, a hollow, almost familiar sound. Then I resumed my wandering, not really knowing where I was going. Passing the gym, I saw a few guys hanging streamers and pushing tables against the walls. They were setting up for the evening dance. I stopped for a moment, then ended up giving them a hand. Carrying benches, stringing cables, fixing light bulbs. It was better than being alone with my memories. When everything was ready, the sun was starting to set behind the hill. The string lights came on one by one, like fireflies. By nightfall, the gym was packed. Multicolored streamers hung above the dance floor. Music flowed from an old RCA record player. People were laughing, dancing, drinking punch. I wasn't the only one in uniform. Some wore it to show off. Others, like me, simply because it was the only clean outfit they had. I scanned the room, impatient to know if she would be there. And then I saw her, Clara. I had glimpsed her a few hours earlier at the diner. But this was different. Under the string lights, in her white dress, she seemed almost unreal. The light caught her hair, her laugh mingled with the others, and yet she seemed apart. I couldn't say what struck me, maybe the contrast. In the morning, she was serving coffee. That night, she seemed to have stepped out of a dream, and I saw only her. I didn't know what to say to her, or how to approach her. I had never been very good with women. There had been Vivian, a local blonde, before the war. We had kissed, lying in the hay, then she had run off laughing. Nothing else. After that, career. and the nights you forget immediately. Nothing that really matters. I simply walked toward her. She was talking with the brunette I had seen earlier. When I reached her, Clara looked up at me, and for a split second, I forgot to breathe. She had large eyes, a soft brown, almost melancholic. Her light brown hair fell over her shoulders, and there was something fragile in her fine features, in the curve of her chin. I asked her if she wanted to dance, and, against all odds, she said yes. There was that music I still hear sometimes when I think of her. Only you can make this world seem right. For a few minutes, the world only existed through her hand in mine and that song. I was a lousy dancer, but holding Clara against me, I felt like Fred Astaire. And then everything stopped. First, the music. Silence. The electric lights began to flicker. Fast. Very fast. I felt Clara stiffen against me. Her gaze sought mine, worried. A crackle, a sharp snap.
The string lights exploded in a shower of sparks. Light burst from the ceiling, white, burning, screams rang out, chairs fell over. Clara screamed and covered her face. I grabbed her hand and dragged her under a table, sheltered from the shards of glass. The wood vibrated above our heads, the bulbs popping one by one. The racket finally died down, but only to give way to something worse. A tense calm, charged with electricity, as if the air was holding its breath. Clara was trembling against me. I slid an arm around her, trying to protect her as best I could. Then, under the table, the world turned white. Not a normal light, not a bulb, not a spotlight, not any earthly source. A pure, total, crushing brightness that passed through the fabric of the tablecloth and illuminated our hands as if our bones were becoming transparent. I understood immediately.
Don't look at the light! Close your eyes, Clara. Now!
She obeyed without arguing, eyelids squeezed shut, her face buried against my shoulder. The light pulsed again, a huge beat, then dimmed slightly, just enough to give way to the heat. A burning gust passed under the table, as if the air itself had just been stripped bare. My skin tingled, my arms heated up. Clara stifled a moan. The ground began to vibrate, a first tremor, brief, then a second, longer, heavier, as if something colossal had just struck the earth outside. And finally came the sound, a deep rumble, distant at first, massive, almost unreal. Then it swelled, rolled against the walls, shook the framework above us. The shockwave hit a second later. The gym doors exploded inward, projecting a cloud of dust and debris. The blast overturned tables, made ours jump, almost flattened us to the floor. I held Clara even tighter. Around us, silhouettes were screaming, footsteps running blindly, smoke spreading. The heat increased, suffocating, almost palpable. A heat without flame, without source, as if the air itself was starting to burn.
Keep your head down and protect your face.
What?
Put your arm over your eyes. Don't breathe too deep.
She obeyed without question. Her fingers trembled against my sleeve. I could feel her heart beating, fast, frantic, just like mine.
What is happening?
I don't have the slightest idea.
That wasn't the truth. I knew, or at least I sensed it. All the reflexes from our drills came back at once. The blinding flash, the dry heat, the shockwave arriving with a delay. Everything coincided. Everything. But I couldn't tell her that. Not now.
Stay here, Clara. I'll come back for you.
She nodded, curled up under the table, arms around herself as if to stop the shaking. I slipped out of our shelter, carefully. Around me, it was chaos. People were running in all directions, looking for an exit. Some fell, others called out for their loved ones. A woman was sobbing near the stage, another screaming that we were all going to burn. The air reeked of ozone and burnt dust. A real battlefield. Normally, I would have assessed the wounded, triaged the emergencies, given first aid. But there was only one thing that mattered: getting Clara to safety. The rest would come later. I took a few steps, checked that the way was clear, then went back to her.
It's okay. Come.
I took her by the arm to help her up.
Stay close to me. We're getting out. Whatever happens, don't let go of my arm and look at the ground.
Clara nodded, unable to speak. I felt her short breath right next to my shoulder. The noise seemed to be moving away, muffled by the dust still in suspension. We stepped over debris, overturned chairs, and followed the movement of the crowd toward the exit. Outside, a compact mass, dazed, stared at the horizon. In the distance, in the mountains, a column of fire rose into the sky, wide, distorted, like a blaze caught in a whirlwind. It wasn't a perfect mushroom cloud, more like a mass of dark smoke, illuminated from within by giant embers. The ground still vibrated in fits and starts, brief tremors that made the dust tremble at our feet. Debris was falling back into the valley, tracing red arcs like sparks from a forge. A cold wind descended from the heights, loaded with burnt dust and a metallic, almost electric smell. The sky wasn't black. A vibrant orange glow masked the stars along the entire horizon. Clara, next to me, stared at the scene without a word, like all of us, without understanding what had just happened, and I myself wasn't certain I understood it. One thing was sure, it wasn't a bomb, but it wasn't anything we knew.
People shouted around us.
It's a nuclear explosion. The Reds! It's the Russians! They're attacking us!
In the distance, sirens were screaming, getting closer at full speed. Red and blue spinning lights swept across the deserted facades, cutting through the dust in shards of light like wounds. Military police. Jeeps were already braking right near us, on the asphalt. Soldiers jumped out immediately, rifles slung over shoulders, faces set, ghostly silhouettes in the gloom.
Don't move. Stay together.
They deployed rapidly, forming a perimeter around the gym, pushing back onlookers, securing the zone. An officer stepped down from the first vehicle. I recognized Colonel Morris, a war hero. At the base, his name circulated like a legend. No pilot had more flight hours, nor more composure than him. Square jaw, steel gaze. I don't think I ever saw him smile. The guys respected him, feared him a little too. You lowered your eyes when he walked by. Me too. He grabbed the megaphone a soldier handed him.
Ladies and gentlemen, I ask for your attention. Effective immediately, this zone is placed under military control. Those who can must return immediately to their homes and stay there until further notice. Close doors, windows, and shutters.
He paused, scanned the crowd slowly.
No one leaves the town without authorization. All access roads are closed and under military lock. Curfew is in effect immediately.
A rumble rose from the crowd.
What are you talking about? What about our families? We want to know what's happening.
Morris didn't answer. He signaled to the lieutenant stationed to his right. The soldiers started moving, pushing back the civilians, politely but without leaving the slightest room for argument. Clara, next to me, was still gripping my arm. I could feel her fear in the pressure of her fingers, steady, almost painful.
What's happening, Steve?
Nothing good.
A military truck stopped near the gym with a dry screech. Soldiers got out, fast, precise. Some were already setting up metal barriers. Others were taking photos, collecting readings from Geiger counters, noting everything they saw in small notebooks. I knew this procedure. They had repeated it to us again and again for years. Perimeter security, civilian confinement, access lockdown, immediate data collection. It was the nuclear emergency protocol, the one you only saw in manuals, the one none of us thought we'd ever live through. Seeing it applied for real gave me an icy chill. Morris put down the megaphone and stepped forward. When he reached me, his steel blue gaze stopped on me. I immediately stood at attention.
Grant.
He looked me up and down, impassive.
Sergeant Grant, I'm requisitioning you. Follow me.
I stood frozen for a second.
Now?
Do you have a problem, Sergeant?
None, Colonel. There are injured civilians here, and I thought...
Grant, I am not asking you to think. I am asking you to execute orders.
Around us, the crowd was dispersing little by little, pushed back by the soldiers. Clara was still squeezing my arm. I turned my head toward her.
Good luck, soldier.
Her eyes were wide. She wasn't trembling from cold, but from fear.
Be careful, okay?
For a moment I thought she was going to answer me, but instead of speaking, she slid her hand into mine, gently, as if to hold me back for just one more second. Then she rose on her tiptoes and kissed me, not on the cheek, on the mouth. A quick, fragile kiss, as if she wasn't certain she had the right, or wasn't certain she had the time. She pulled back immediately, and I stood there, unable to move. I finally detached myself reluctantly and followed Iceman Morris toward the jeep. Behind me, the spinning lights were still projecting their red flashes on the facades, and in the sky there were still no stars. That's the moment it happened. A banal phenomenon, but impossible in this season. First a white dot suspended in the air, then another, and one more. Snow. In the middle of August, grey flakes, light, almost soft, landing on our shoulders in silence. I caught one with my fingertips. It melted immediately on my skin, leaving a black, oily smear. The door slammed behind me. I climbed into the back of the jeep, between two soldiers whose names I didn't even know. The engine coughed, then roared. Through the dust, I caught a glimpse of Clara. She had stayed there, motionless, arms wrapped tight around herself. The wind was lifting a lock of her hair. Our eyes met one last time, a second, no more. This wasn't how the evening was supposed to end. I wanted to wave to her, but the jeep took off too fast to leave me the time. The engine growled, tires screeching on the gravel. The car surged forward, and Henderson disappeared behind us, swallowed by the night and by the rain of ash. Ahead, the road wound toward the hill. Over there something was burning, not a normal fire, an open wound in the night.